We're learning Hilchos Shvisas. Also, Perek Aleph Halacha Gimel. Umutar lekane v'sayerek b'Yom HaKippurim min hamincha l'mala. You can prepare vegetables, clean them from mincha in the afternoon, even though you are not preparing it for Yom Kippur, and even though it's food which you're not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur. We'll go to the Peirush. Even though we learned Yom Kippur is equal to Shabbos, the Shabbos you cannot prepare for any other time, they permitted this preparation of vegetables. You find Shulchan Aruch in 6:11. Umar kinuv. What does it mean to kinuv? What do they do to the vegetables? Sheyasir es olam hamufoshes. That they take off those leaves which have dried up. Maggid Mishnah cites Rashi in Shabbos 1:16a that he explains it like the Rambam. Rashi brings proof that it means cutting from the Gemara. This person who cuts up spinach is liable because of cutting. So you see, it's a language of removal or cutting off the parts that aren't going to be used. So there's a question you can ask on the Maggid Mishnah. You saw the Divrei Rambam and the Rashi as one and the same opinion. Going to the Rambam, he takes off the unusable and leaves the usable. Going to Rashi, is he takes off all the leaves from the base. They should be ready to chop them up. Machon Nesher HaGadol says the intent of the Maggid Mishnah was not to say they're literally the same, but that they both explain the word knevus yera, cutting, as a language of cutting. Going to the Rambam is taking off the leaves. Going to Rashi is to prepare them for eating. I should point out that we're showing them on the sugya on the subject matter in Shabbos, the Shabbos 1:14b. That's the Rashba, the Ritva, and the Ran mention Rashi that it means taking off and just like the Rambam does, taking off only the leaves that are not edible, and it seems to be the text of the Maggid Mishnah in Rashi. Therefore, maybe that's the reason why the Maggid Mishnah says that Rashi and the Rambam explain the same. You don't have to answer that it means from cutting. The Maggid Mishnah questions on the Rambam is an Osor of separating, which is forbidden Yoraisa, and he explains that Boira separating is only when he takes food out. In other words, he separates food from items which are not food edible at all, or he separates one type from the other, as is explained in Hilchos Shabbos. But when he takes off the wilted leaves, that's what is left is the same type, and it's technically edible, even that which is wilted. And since that being the case, you don't have the problem of boyer, of separating good from unusable. And the Chacham, though, removed the edict of saying you shouldn't do on Shabbos things like this to prepare, and he did it because a person, when he has food and he knows he's going to have food as soon as the fast is over, will be able to fast longer. And then he should cut up the rest and prepare it for food. As the Maggid Mishnah explains, it doesn't mean to mince it into small pieces, because that's like grinding. As we find in all the Shabbos, it means just the portions which are smaller. The Maggid Mishnah cites the Rashba and the Ramban that it means they don't learn chopping. It means just rinsing, and it's found in the Yerushalmi and Shabbos and Tosefta that you can wash things that have been pickled or cooked on Yom Kippur at nightfall. The Gra cites the Yerushalmi that forbids doing this action on Shabbos is because you're preparing for Shabbos for the weekdays. if you would do it for that Shabbos, it would be permitted. Yom Kippur, they permitted it from Mincha L'Maylo, even though he's preparing it for Motzi Yom Tov, because of Agmas Nefesh. The Magen Mishnah brings two reasons why they didn't permit it before Mincha, because it looks like you're preparing it for that day, and also maybe you'll come to eat it. But from Mincha Mali, already once he's up to Mincha, he figures he can wait till the evening, and he has Pas B'Sali, he has food in his bag, and he's not concerned that much about eating. It would seem from his words, we're talking about from Mincha Ketana, an hour and a quarter before. The Prima Godim is questions if it's permitted from Mincha Gdola, rather, a half hour after Chatzos, or Mincha Ketana, which is closer to the evening. The Mishnah Berurah decides the issue that from Mincha Ketana is the time that people begin to prepare food during any weekday, and therefore he's doing it for the night. But before Mincha Ketana, it's forbidden, because it would seem he's doing it for the day. Sharatzini cites that we find this in the Sefta that the Gemara brings. It says Yom HaKippurim im Chasheichon, means close to nightfall. In the language of the Magen Mishnah writes second reason is because it's close to evening, is the same. That means that there's no concern, maybe he'll forget himself and eat on Yom Kippur. The Magen Avraham brings both explanations of the Magen Mishnah, why they didn't permit it before Mincha, because it looks like you're doing it for the day of Yom Kippur, or because maybe you'll come to eat from it. And he adds in parentheses that you should see what is found at the end in Shulchan Aruch of 612. The Levush Yitzchod and all the commentaries explain to Magen Avraham that it means to ask that after Mincha you do not edict, maybe they'll come to eat. In 612, by Erev Pesach, after Mincha, Magen Avraham brings Yerushalmi that one should not work with it, because we're afraid lest he come to eat, and we don't make this differentiation whether it's close to the evening or before. We see that the entire day is forbidden. That's why the Magen Avraham writes that you cannot explain that the Knivas Yerek is regarding a vegetable which is eaten cooked and not raw, and therefore you don't have to make an edict because you're not going to come eat a raw potato, for example, because a vegetable that cannot be eaten is forbidden even until you touch it, because it's muktzah. It's not even edible for ktanim, meaning for minor children. But a vegetable that's edible raw can be used because it's not muktzah. The Smag explains the intent of the Magen Avraham that they permitted in Yom Kippur only achona because of agmas nefesh, but they did not permit the rabbinical edict of muktzah, because muktzah is based on something we find in the Torah. So to Chem Afsiyan Be'egoiz, by Goizen, the Rambam says you can also smash the walnuts, mafrichen, berimonim. You can separate the pits of the pomegranate, min mincha l'malo, from mincha time and later. Mnei agmas nefesh, because the person shouldn't be desolate that he doesn't have what to eat. And that's what Ran says in the Taz. And Rashi explains that they did it because when he sees something that's prepared, he doesn't eat it, and when he prepares the vegetable, it causes actually more pain to him that he can't eat it. Shabbos, Rashi explains Agmas Nefesh that he prepares, it's close to being tormenting, but before Mincha, when there's a lot of time before eating, they didn't permit it because at that point he's not hungry enough yet to cause him to be pained by it. The difference would be between these two reasons, Rae Gann says, by putting away hot things on Erev Yom Kippur. Well, you're allowed to prepare for Motzei Yom Kippur. Someone 609, the Ramah writes, you shouldn't put things away in Yom Kippur because he's preparing from Yom Kippur the Chol. Therefore, according to Rashi, it's preparation. According to those explanations of Mishnah, Maggid Mishnah and the Ran, she shouldn't be upset. Maybe we can permit even putting away hot items as well. Yom Kippur is b'Shabbos. If Yom Kippur happened though to fall on Shabbos, also if it was Yerek, then you would not be allowed to do it because Shabbos takes precedence, or it's like egoism, or breaking open walnuts, or separating the pits of the seeds of the pomegranate all day. Now, until now, we're talking about Yom Kippur that fell on Shabbos. The Maggid Mishnah cites that Rabbi Yochanan permitted the preparation of Yom Kippur, of this vegetable on Yom Kippur that happened to be on Shabbos. Rav Huna forbade it. The Rambam would seem to codify the Halacha according to Rav Huna because he is the later one. Usually the Halacha is accorded with the later Ameira, meaning later than Rabbi Yochanan. The Gemara questions. Everyone else seems to agree with the Rabbi Yochanan, and the halacha, there are those who write that the halacha is like the ladder is only begins from the generations of Abaye and Rava, but not from Rav Huna who preceded that. The Maggid Mishnah explains that the Rambam codifies the halacha of Huna because the Brisa accords with him, and the Goin writes that the Maggid Mishnah didn't have our text. Tanika was Rabbi Yochanan, just the Brisa like Rav Huna. Therefore, here's the halacha like Rav Huna because there's a Brisa that accords with him. The reason that the Shulchan Aruch wrote that today they don't do it any longer, this preparation, as the Rae Taz writes, because maybe it'll start too early. My Mishnah writes that since they didn't permit it, even on Yom Kippur that fell on Yechoel on weekdays, therefore they're not mentioned actually in the halachas. The Mishnah questions on the rules of the Rambam. There's no difference between Shabbos and Yom Kippur in regard to these things, except for the fact that if you do intentionally an activity on Shabbos, it's a skill, and Yom Kippur it's bikoros. We just saw that the preparation of Yerek and Yom Kippur, of a vegetable on Yom Kippur, even though it's forbidden to do so on Shabbos, you may do so on Yom Kippur. And the answer is that the Rambam words that apply only to actual melacha, which is subject to a penalty. But this Yerek, which is only also because of the Rabbanon, as we said previously, because it's edible, both parts are edible, therefore it can be differentiated from the halacha that would apply Shabbos. Fanogoam Bishino, and the people of the nation who lived in Bovel had the custom of Meirev, and also in Maghrebi. They shouldn't do it. That one, what you don't do on Shabbos, you don't do on Yom Kippur either. That we find this in Masechta Shabbos 115a. Rava saw that his family was beginning to cut Yerek too early, therefore he forbade it. And therefore, in order they should accept it, he said, I have a letter from Rabbi Yochanan and it's Osor that you can't do it. Therefore, the Rif, when he says the halachas, he's talking about the Rif, did not mention these halachas, even though they're found in the Gemara.